Life Audio.
Welcome to the Team Us podcast, where we share how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together. Hey everyone, we're Ted.
And Ashley Slater. Have you heard that love is all you need to make a marriage work? This marriage myth couldn't be further from the truth. Today, we debunk this myth and talk about how you need more than love if you want your marriage to go the distance. So, Ted.
Yes?
I have been reading a book on the friendship of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien.
Ah, man, I can't imagine how deep and fun and rich their friendship was.
Yeah, I just got to the part where they've become friends, so I'm still getting into it. The book's called Myth Makers, but it's really interesting so far. I mean,
Sounds like it would be.
Yeah, Lewis and Tolkien are two authors who did a lot to shape modern fantasy and sci-fi into what it is today.
Right? Now, I peeked over your shoulder. This is a graphic novel, or what is it?
It is. It's a graphic novel by John Hendricks.
Okay.
I had read his graphic novel on Bonhoeffer, which was so good. So when I saw that he had one coming out on Lewis and Tolkien, I was like, I pre-ordered it before it came out. Yes.
That's great.
So it's really interesting. I mean, sometimes it's very deep as they're getting into defining things and exploring things. And I'm like, okay, I don't feel smart enough for this book, but maybe it'll make me smarter.
Sure. Now, the name of this episode includes the word myth. So are we going to go there with this?
Right. Well, in this book, like John Hendricks, he defines myth, in a literary sense.
Well, tell me more.
Okay. Well, he writes that a true myth takes place in a time out of time and a place out of place separated from our modern world. And I hadn't really thought of stories such as Narnia or Lord of the Rings in that way before, but it really does describe them, don't you think?
Time out of time, place out of place, separated from our modern world. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know.
I hadn't thought of that.
That one was not too academic for me. I could get that one. But it's fun to embrace the myths or legendary stories of authors such as Lewis and Tolkien.
Absolutely.
But as he said, myth is in our title today. There's another kind of myth that we as couples can't afford to embrace. And those are marriage myths, or widely held false beliefs about marriage and what makes it work.
Before I got married,
yes,
I was exposed to marriage myths. And sometimes it takes marriage to help you understand that some of these things are, in fact, myths. Right.
Well, and I do think, though, also that sometimes marriages fall apart because people don't realize that some of these are myths.
They're holding on to something that's just not true.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily a thing you believe before you get married. I think a lot of couples bring them into marriage, and it can create problems in the relationship.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I recently read an article at Forbes that I thought summed up the problem with marriage myths well. So the writer, Mark Trevor, says, and I quote, "Of all human relationships, marriage stands as one that is the most complex and ever-evolving. This complexity is what gives rise to the differing ideas and opinions that we hear regarding what makes a good marriage and what it takes to make it work. However, many of these beliefs are entirely mythical." He goes on to say, "Most couples embark on their marital journeys blissfully unaware of the myths that lie beneath the surface of their union. And without even realizing, many partners hold strongly to these myths about marriage, believing them to be true without any scrutiny. In doing so, partners may unknowingly create problems in their marriage."
Okay, I'm thinking of a few that you may touch on, but I'm interested to see what you pick.
Right. Well, today we're actually kicking off a series on marriage myths.
Yes.
So this is the first.
There's more than one.
Yes, the first of many episodes.
Oh, many.
Where we're going to talk about marriage myths. And the first one that we're talking about today is that love is all you need to make a marriage work.
I've heard so many songs that include that phrase.
Right.
Love is all you need.
Yes. So after a short break, we're going to share why this myth falls short. So today we are debunking the marriage myth that says love is all you need to make a marriage work. So let's unpack this myth just a little bit. It's the idea that those feelings of intense romantic love that bring a couple together will keep them together long term. As a result, many couples go into marriage believing that being in love is the foundation for a strong, healthy, until death do us part marriage. But the thing is that while these feelings of I'm in love with you may have brought a couple together, as spouses, we need more than feelings to keep us together long term.
That makes sense. I mean, feelings, they come and go. Some days I'm all squishy inside, and sometimes I'm like a little brittle. And so, yeah, feelings for me, they come and go, you know?
Well, I think that's true of all of us. So what is the more that we need? Our love also needs long-term commitment. Without it, love falls short.
Long-term commitment. Well, of course, that makes sense. Go on.
Well, I mean, we've been married 22 years, and we haven't built the foundation of our marriage on how we feel about each other at any given moment. I mean, because as you said, our feelings change. So we've determined that our commitment to one another trumps our emotions.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, it's like a commitment without question.
Right. I mean, you've even joked and said, it's my obligation.
It's my obligation to love you.
Yeah.
Which sounds pretty crass, but yeah, I think you should take comfort that it's just the way it is.
There's the sentiment behind it.
Yeah.
Is
my
commitment.
Feelings may change, but yeah.
Here I am,
sitting in my office,
right,
recording.
Yes. Okay. So what is one practical way for all of us as couples to live out that commitment to each other when we aren't experiencing those in-love feelings? Here's what I have.
Okay.
We lead with right action and wait for our feelings to follow.
Okay, I can think of examples what that might look like. Like a right action might be something as simple as taking out the trash or making the bed or picking up the cat poop. Or is that where you're going, or are you something else?
Okay, I'm going to jump ahead of my notes and then come back to where we are. I remember a season when we had like this ongoing, frustrating, and very expensive issue with car problems with our Neon. Like it died on me like 2 hours away from home, had to be towed. We got it fixed. They didn't really fix it. That was really stressful. And then at the same time, this was back in like 2014. So it's been like a decade since
Georgia,
then.
right?
Georgia. I think we all got hit with a flu virus, all 6 of us.
Boom.
And then for whatever reason, your blood pressure decided to skyrocket. I think you may have even had to go to the hospital to have it checked out.
I did, yeah.
I had like abnormal moles that had to be removed. There was just a lot of stuff. And I think you and I...
This isn't when you had your, was that the stone?
It's not when I had my kidney stone. That was a different time.
That was miserable too.
Yes. But I think that we were very stressed and we weren't handling it well. And we were having lots of disagreements and fights through it. And just, irritated with each other. We were not feeling those gooey, ooey, I love you feelings.
Squishy.
Right? And I remember we were in church one morning and during worship, you reached out and grabbed my hand. And I could have like slapped your hand and said, no, buddy, I'm not holding your hand right now.
Buddy.
But I reached back, and that was us doing right action, even when our feelings towards each other were more of irritation and frustration.
Okay, so holding hands has that sort of romantic connotation to it. So it's not the same as doing laundry or taking out the trash or cooking a meal or whatever. It's kind of an action that somehow expresses affection in a different way.
Well, I think it was a action of, you know what? We've been disconnected. We haven't felt drawn to each other. Let's fight against that. Okay. Let's connect.
All right.
So it was a physical way to express an emotional connection that we needed.
Right. Yeah, that makes good sense.
Even though neither of us felt like it at the moment. So I think that we've learned that when our feelings point us away from each other, we need to cling tightly to that promise that we made for better or for worse. Because I think that promise is weightier than all the hard stuff. It's weightier than car problems and viruses and abnormal moles and all
whatever
of
else makes it difficult to be.
It's bigger than those weeks when we could both wear a T-shirt that reads "I'm with Grumpy" because we're both grumpy.
Oh no!
Right? And so I think that when we lead with action and wait for our feelings to follow, we are clinging to those promises that we've made. And we've talked about it on the podcast before that our vows are very helpful when we don't feel in love. Mm-hmm. I even quoted from an article in a previous episode called Why Your Vows Mean More Now Than on Your Wedding Day. And I actually wanted to read a quote from that again because I think it's from this article.
Okay.
Because
Good.
I think it's such a great article, and I'll have a link in the show notes again.
Okay.
So the writer, Adam Hillis, says, every time you encounter a difficult stretch in your marriage and you choose to stay put and work through it and get to the other side of it, you add to the wealth of your wedding vows. You paid a price by entering into a battle, enduring the uncomfortable nature of being vulnerable and talking through things, emerging victorious. Your scars remind you that you've grown, you have a new capacity for love and understanding, and you are a man, or woman, I'll add, of your word. You vowed to stay together for better or worse, and now you've proved it. This value added to our words helps us keep proving it over and over. And I think that when we use right action, even when our feelings feel differently, we keep proving our vows over and over, like he talks about.
Right. What was the phrase used? Yeah, entering into battle, enduring the uncomfortable nature of being vulnerable and talking through things, emerging victorious.
Right. And I think that when we as couples believe that love is all we need to keep us together, then there are so many other things that can come in when we don't feel love. We can be like, well, I married the wrong person. Or we just fell out of love and now we shouldn't stay together. There's all kinds of lies that follow.
Or if you think that loving feeling is the heart of your relationship and necessary for being successfully married, you might seek after that squishy feeling. Mm-hmm. And so you get that squishy feeling, but you still got issues that haven't been resolved. So it's kind of phony because you got this artificially squishy, lovey feeling, but there's still issues that need to be dealt with, or something bigger than just the feelings.
Right. Yeah.
And like you said earlier, right, about the feelings will follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we found in our experience.
Yep.
Is that right action eventually brings right feelings.
And we're probably not a whole lot different from those who are listening to us right now.
Right, exactly. Okay, so to recap, love is all you need is a marriage myth that falls short. To keep a marriage strong, we need love plus long-term commitment. We need to remember our vows and to live them out. So we're going to take a break, and when we return, we'll be back with this week's Us Time Challenge. So for this week's Us Time Challenge, I thought listeners should just revisit their vows. Remind themselves of what they promised when those in-love feelings were at their newest and strongest.
And that's not hard for us because you have framed them and put them on our bedroom wall.
Yes, it's a good reminder.
Right next to a wedding picture.
Yeah, maybe those listening, maybe you can do that too.
It doesn't take much. Print it off, tape it to the wall.
Yeah, I found a printed copy when I was going through a bin of like old memories. So I did.
That's a great idea.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the Team Us podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, and we'd love to have you leave a review over at Apple Podcasts. We're looking forward to next time as we keep talking about how grace, commitment, and cooperation can help couples live the everyday moments of marriage together.
Team Us with Ted and Ashley Slater is a production of Life Audio and Salem Media. If you liked what you heard today, please take a second to rate and review the podcast in your favorite podcast app so that more listeners like you can find the show. For more faith-filled, inspirational podcasts, visit us at lifeaudio.com.
Hey, I'm Jeff King, the president of Persecution.org and the host of Faith Under Fire, where we examine threats to the faith and the transformative spiritual lessons of the persecuted church. If you're a deep Christian looking for life-changing content or just trying to make sense of political attacks on the faith, come listen to Faith Under Fire.